Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. And my name is Ferreira. Welcome to this penultimate III Inequalities seminar of the autumn term, as it's now called. Those of us who have a long history of LSE still want to call it Michaelmas term, but it's now the autumn term. I'm delighted to welcome today Vito Peragine, who's a professor of political economy and head of the Department of Economics at the University of Bari, and is also an old friend and co-author. It's a pleasure to have you back here, Vito. So he'll speak for about 40-45 minutes. There will be time for questions at the end, both for people online and for those of you here. If you are online, please keep your mic muted, and we'll get you to questions afterwards. Vito, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chico. It's a pleasure for me to be here, to be back here, to keep our, let's say, dialogue and work together and reflection together on this issue, to which both of us and some of people here have devoted a lot of time, which is the idea of measuring inequality and measuring inequality of opportunity in particular. So thanks for being here, everybody. So the paper I'm presenting is still a working paper, in the sense that there's, should I? Yeah, now it works. So it's a working paper with Marc Flerbet at Paris School of Economics and Domenico Marco, who's here. And it's still a work in progress. So really, I look forward for your comments and suggestions on what we do. So what is the idea of this paper? This is a theoretical paper with an empirical illustration at the end. And so, you know, we hope to raise some interesting issues in this work. So let me start with presenting very briefly what is equality opportunity about, how we measure it, and why we propose this new methodology. So equality opportunity, roughly speaking, is the idea that you should not equalize final outcomes of individuals to reach a fair distribution, but you should equalize opportunities. Okay, and there are different reasons why you want to do that. Some are normative, rooted into philosophical discussion. I have quoted here, I have copied here some names of people who have worked in the philosophical literature on it. But there are also some reasons which are, let's say, instrumental, so efficiency-based reasons. And there are some evidences according to which equality opportunity is the prevailing concept of fairness, according to many individuals in many different areas of the world. The economic model in general is used to capture inequality opportunity can be explained very simply in this way. Suppose you have an individual outcome, which we denote by X, which depends on many factors. We can partition the factors into circumstances, which are outside the individual responsibility, and effort, which are the factors within the responsibility. Okay, so equality opportunity says that you should reward the effort in some way, and you should compensate for the circumstances. Okay, in terms of assessing a given distribution of outcomes, these two principles of reward and compensation say that you should distinguish between the fair inequalities, which are inequalities due to effort, and unfair inequalities which are due to circumstances. Okay, and there is now a big set of methodologies and a big set of evidences in what is the extent of unfair inequalities, which are inequality of opportunities across the world. Okay, most of the differences between the different methodologies come from different, implicitly or explicitly, on different way to decline to specify the compensation and the reward axioms, the compensation and reward principles. Interesting, the compensation principle, which is the egalitarian component of the equality opportunity approach, all the compensation principles which have been proposed, which are basically ex ante or ex post, according to the moment in which you decided to compensate, before or after the effort is revealed, they all require to compensate completely the circumstances, okay? On the other hand, the reward principle, which is the problem of how to treat inequality in outcomes which come from inequality in effort, okay, I've received different answers in the literature, okay, which go from, let's say, the two extreme positions, which are utilitarian inequality average, to intermediate position. What does this means exactly? So how should you treat the inequalities due to effort, to responsibility? The most common assumption is the utilitarian reward, which says that once you have compensated the inequality due to circumstances, you should be completely neutral with respect to inequalities due to effort. Okay? So you should ignore all the other inequalities. Right? On the other extreme, you have an inequality aversion reward, which says you should also be averse with respect to inequalities due to effort. Okay? And then you have some intermediate positions. Now, in empirical application, by far the most common assumption is the utilitarian. That is the idea that you measure inequality due to circumstances and you ignore completely the inequality due to effort. Okay? Now, this equality opportunity approach has been criticized on many grounds, as it is normal in economics, in social science. In particular, here I will put two, let's say, weaknesses of the approach, if you want, two challenges of the approach. One is empirically in nature, and is the following. When you make a partition of the factors into circumstances and effort, you know, I mean, we know that we will never be able to observe all the circumstances for which an individual cannot be held responsible. Okay, we always, any data set, will observe a subset of the true set of circumstances, right? And this partial observability problem, which has been emphasized by others, by Chico and his co-author, 10 years ago, maybe even more, brought to the interpretation of the estimates that we have as a lower bound of the true inequality opportunity you would obtain if you were able to observe all the circumstances, okay? But this has also, in a sense, generated a big controversy on the usefulness of these estimates. In particular, an influential paper by Ravi Campbell and Wagstaff, they criticize the full equality opportunity approach by saying that you are only able to estimate a portion of the true inequality opportunity, but by doing that, in a sense, you are evoking the attention of individual on a small portion of inequalities we observe in reality. Okay. And in general, this informational constraint has been addressed by the exploitation of alternative computation techniques or richer data sets to add more and more circumstances. In addition to this empirical problem, there is a purely, if you want, theoretical normative issue, which is this. Okay, we know that we have to compensate the circumstances, then we have the effort and we have the outcomes. Now, suppose that for tiny differences in effort, you have huge differences in outcomes, in final outcomes, okay? So it is reasonable to ask if any reward to effort is fair, and if any differences due to effort are fair, okay? In the sense that the believing that to more effort, you should, if you accept more effort, you should have the right to have more outcomes or higher level of outcomes or achievements, doesn't necessarily mean that any outcome difference coming from differences in effort should be legitimate, okay? So for instance, do we need to justify the super rich? So enormous differences in outcomes, even if they come from small or reasonable differences in effort, okay? And on the normative ground, this is also not clearly that it should be like that. So, in fact, in empirical analysis, what you do until now is either you measure inequality of opportunity, okay, which is interpreted as a lower bound of the true inequality of opportunity, or you measure inequality of outcomes, total inequality of incomes, okay? Now, if you take seriously these two criticisms, you know, in a sense, you can be a bit, let's say, unsatisfied with the problem of choosing between either a route of equality of opportunity or a route of complete inequality of outcomes, okay? So what we propose here is that we propose a fairness principle in which both inequality of opportunity, which are inequalities due to circumstances, and inequality due to effort matters, okay? But priority is recognized to inequality of opportunity. Okay. So in a sense, you know, you want to go a step behind inequality of opportunity, but without reaching the full inequality of outcomes. Okay. So what we propose here is that the priority is the compensation principle. You should compensate for the circumstances. But then you know that the remaining inequalities, either because of partial observability of circumstances, or because not all effort inequalities, you know, are legitimate in terms of the results that they have in outcomes, are ethically legitimate. So you want to express also inequality aversion with respect to the residual inequalities. But priority should be given to the first ones, which are inequality of opportunity. So what we propose is exactly this. A prioritarian, let's say, version of inequality of opportunity. Okay, so what do we do to propose this? We use a normative approach. So we characterize axiomatically a family of social welfare functions, which express clearly this idea of priority with respect to the two different sources of inequality, okay? And then a new family of inequality indices, which are based on those families, so normative indices. From a technical point of view, with respect to previous contribution, in our characterization, we do not impose an ordering of types, okay? So let's say ex ante, and we do not impose additive aggregation within and between types, at least not in all results we have. Then we'll add additivity and then we have an empirical application. So let me go on. Oh, let me say just a relation with the literature. Who's giving me the time, more or less?
You have another half an hour.
Okay. I mean, in a sense, closing spirit of what we do is a recent paper by Ufe, Campbell, and Pekel, in which they combine inequality of opportunity, the idea of inequality of opportunity, with the idea of combating poverty, okay? So there the focus is different. They want to combine not inequality of opportunity with income inequality, but inequality of opportunity with the eradication of poverty. In common, they have that they try to combine the two principles, okay, two distributive principles. But of course, we are talking about two different principles with respect to us. This idea was, in fact, already presented in a paper by Bourguignon, Chico, and Walton in 2007, and is also part of a paper that we have in which the focus is different. I mean, in this paper by Ufe, Campbell, and Pekel, they propose a normative distribution, so a fair distribution in which there is no poverty at all, and the rest of the distribution is such that there is not inequality of opportunity. Okay, while here, what we do in this Brunori, Ferreira, Lugo, and Peragine, we propose to measure poverty in the usual way, but then when you go to evaluate the distribution of the poor people, you use the inequality of opportunity as a criterion instead of the total inequality. Okay, so it's a different issue. What I found in a sense, sorry for the citation of a paper of mine, which was more than 20 years ago now, which is very bad. In an old paper of mine, I propose a welfare criterion in which I combine inequality of opportunity with the agnostic position with respect to the residual inequalities, okay? Which in a sense is a step before what we do now. We impose now inequality aversion, okay? But this one was without any priority assigned, but giving equal weights, okay? Okay, let's see what we propose. So this is the model. We have a set of circumstances. We have a distribution, basically, which can be treated as a matrix. We assume that all types have equal size, okay? So this is a very simplifying assumption. And basically, we have a matrix which the rows are the types. Types are a set of individuals with the same circumstances. And with R, we identify the rank of individual in each type, okay? So we have rows, which are types, and we have columns of individuals. So the rows are individuals with the same circumstances, and the columns are individuals with the same effort. So we try to rank these distributions. So first of all, we will work with the concept of Schur concavity, which express in the usual way the inequality aversion. Okay, so a function is Schur concave. That's a standard definition of Schur concavity, and we express with Schur concavity, as I said, the idea of aversion to inequality. Then we need to define when one function is more inequality averse than another function. Now, there are different ways we could do that. We propose this general way. Now, what says this definition? It's very simple. Consider two distributions x and y. Suppose that these two distributions have the same mean and the same lowlands. Okay, so they have the same inequality and the same mean. Now, consider two functions, f and g. This a and b has to be thought like equally equivalent income. Okay? If you have that a is smaller than b, okay, then f is more inequality averse than g. So if the equally equivalent value generated by f is smaller than the equally equivalent generated by g, then f is more inequality averse. So it means that it gives more weight to inequality than what is given by g. Okay? So that's our idea to say that one function is more inequality averse than another function. As you can imagine, we will go there. Okay? We will get there. Okay. We assume that there is a continuous ordering that define a preference of a prioritarian opportunity egalitarian planner, so that can be represented by a social welfare function. Now we start imposing some axioms of this function in order to identify a family of social functions, okay, that capture our intuition. So what are the properties, the axioms we introduce? Some are standard, and one will be, in a sense, new, will capture our basic idea. So the standard axioms are first monotonicity, so adding one income wherever it happens is good for welfare. So our function is monotonic. The other is normalization. So if all incomes are equal to E is a real number, positive real number, then our welfare is equal to E. Okay? So just a normalization axiom. Then you have homothetic independence. So here really we have two properties condensed into one. One is independence. So this is a capital X minus J is the matrix where one row J has been eliminated. Okay. So what we say here is that the comparison between Xj and X prime J is independent of what happens to the other rows, to the other types. So it doesn't matter if you have X or X prime, capital X or capital X prime. Okay. So is it independent? So each row is evaluated independent from the other. And the other is homotheticity. So basically, the comparison is scale invariant. So if Xj is preferred to X prime J, then if you multiply by lambda, the comparison doesn't change. Okay. Then we have this type symmetry. So this is an important property in this context, because of what it says that you don't have any ordering of types example. Okay, so you can interchange the types and nothing changes. Then you have a much more common property, which is within type symmetry. So within the type, you can permute the incomes and nothing changed. The welfare doesn't change. Then we have our main inequality aversion property. So this is really let's say, the core of our proposal. So we try to capture with this axiom this idea of priority, okay, of one inequality over the other. What this axiom says, I will show with a simple picture. Okay, consider two types, a rich type and a poor type. Okay. Now, remember, we don't have an ordering of types, but suppose these two types are such that one, the rich, first order dominates the second. Okay. So basically, what we are saying here that we do not assume any preordering, but we do assume that whatever is the preordering that you have of types, it respects at least first order dominance. So that if you have one type over the other, I mean, for each rank, you have a higher level of income of one type over the other, then you should be consistent with it. Okay. So in this case, consider two different transfers. They are regressive transfer. One takes place within a type, in particular within the rich type. Is a regressive transfer from a poor individual to a rich individual. So this is regressive, increases inequality. It takes place within a type. Okay? So this is one transfer. Another transfer takes place between a poorer person who is also in a poorer type. So it's a regressive transfer within individuals and between types, which goes from individual L at the same rank as before to individual K. So they both impose a cost on welfare, so they are bad in terms of welfare. But what we say is that the second is worse than the first, because the second is, let's say, doubly offensive with respect to the first.
For equal L.
Yeah.
For equal
Yeah.
L.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Should I do something? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is just an explanation of the same axiom with the okay, with these axioms, we are able to characterize a family of social welfare functions, which works as follows. We have a family of social welfare functions in which the total welfare is obtained by aggregating first the types and then each type. So each type is aggregated by a function small f, and then the single types are aggregated by a capital F. Okay, and what this theorem says that these two f are such that they are both Schur-concave. I mean, small f is Schur-concave, capital F is strictly Schur-concave, and what is relevant, capital F is more inequality averse than small f. So basically, the inequality aversion between the types is stronger than the inequality aversion within the types, which in a sense it was exactly what we were looking for, and which is obtained by that transfer axiom.
Vito.
Yeah.
Sorry. The assumption. So throughout you have this no crossing assumption. The types don't cross. There's always first order dominance.
No. If, I mean, that is the axiom. The axiom says, so the axiom applies only in the case in which you have two types in which there is first order dominance. In that case, if you make those two transfers, you say that one is better than another. So it's very, let's say, mild axiom, because the assumption, the condition required is very strong. So only in the very strong case in which you have that first order dominance, then those two transfers, okay, have that welfare effect.
That's within INEC.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
within INEC.
Yeah, but you don't ask to apply this theorem. I mean, this theorem that all the distributions must be such that you have first order dominance. That's just the definition of the axiom. I mean, in the case in which you have two types, again, in which one first order dominates the other, you make these two different transfers, then you can say that one is better than other. If you don't, if you have other cases, you know, that axiom doesn't apply. You cannot say it.
I'm just wondering what's going to happen when you apply this.
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. Sure. I'm showing first dominance conditions and then inequality indices. Okay. So dominance condition first. We have two different dominance conditions. That one is in fact characterized, the other is a special case. So let's call x with an arrow here the row permutation of x such that the mu of x1 is smaller than the mu of x2, is smaller than the mu of xn. Okay, now you have an ordering of types according to the mean of the type. We define in the usual way the smooth distribution, which is a distribution obtained by substituting to each income in a type the mean of the type, and the standardized distribution, which is such that you have rescaled all the incomes in a type in such a way that now all the types have the same mean. Okay, so you have eliminated all the inequality between the types. So in this way, you eliminate all inequality within type. In this way, you eliminate all inequality between types. That's the standard things. So what the proposition says, which is not really surprising in a sense, is that if you have both dominance in terms of inequality within and generalized Lorentz dominance between, so basically Lorentz dominance of the standardized distribution and generalized Lorentz dominance of the smooth distribution, then you have welfare dominance according to the family obtained before. Okay. Now, as you can see, this is just if. It's not if and non-if. Why? We have to be honest. Here, we're not really satisfied with this condition because here we don't have any priority to the between and the within. Okay, you need both conditions to be satisfied in order to have. Okay. You know, we try to have another condition, a general condition with on both sides, but we didn't succeed. Not yet. Never know. But we have another condition, which let's say we have a step forward. So let's for any vector, let's denote by mu rho the mean of the row. Okay, a special case is the arithmetic mean. Okay, but this is a generalized mean, right? So then we can define, in analogy with the smooth distribution I presented before, a generalized smooth distribution, in which instead of the mean, you have a generalized mean now, substituted to each income. Okay? So let's denote this generalized smooth distribution by x mu rho. Okay? Now, we have this proposition which says, suppose you now take the family of social functions we characterize in theorem 1, okay? But then you select a subset of functions f, the small f, the aggregating welfare of the types, such that they are generalized means above the row, okay? So you're restricting the set of functions so that the capital F remains any sure concrete function, but the small f have to be generalized means of the row. Then you have this dominance condition, which is generalized Lorentz dominance of the smoothed distribution, where the smoothed is the generalized smoothed, so the generalized mean of the row. Okay. So why this works? This captures both between and within. Clearly, the between, because this is between the smoothed, and the within because now you have a generalized mean, and in the generalized mean you take into account the inequality within a type. You don't have an average mean. You have a generalized mean.
So,
okay.
X sub mu sub rho is a vector of
the generalized means
within each type.
for each type. Yeah. So it's like the standard smooth distribution, but now it's generalized to generalized means, not only the arithmetic mean. Okay.
The row could be any number, or it's got a restricted range. It comes.
Rho can be any number. Yeah. I don't remember. Can be remember? Yeah. It's a generalized mean.
Yeah,
Just the one, yeah.
You can define one. It's just
Yeah,
that usually there's restrictions on what
It's-
row is to.
Less than one. Has to be less than one from 0, 1. Yeah. Because if it is 1, then that's just the
No,
arithmetic
that's
mean.
fine. But
And if it's 0, it becomes a logarithm. So
it's
yeah.
a lot.
Now, of course, a special case of this is the generalized Lorentz dominance of the smooth distribution that I obtained in this old paper, when in fact I use the mean, the arithmetic mean, as the only member of the generalized mean family. Okay, so this becomes a special case of this. Okay. And okay, this will be clear on the following slide. So I will. Okay, now. So this for the moment for the general class of family, the general class of social functions. If we had an additivity assumption on the social functions, both within and within types, then we have this very explicit form. This comes from basically from homotheticity and normalization in addition to additivity. So we have this familiar, I would say, social welfare function, which is another way of putting the Atkinson family, just generalized, because now you have a heterogeneous population, so we have within group and between groups. This is a generalized, basically, Atkinson family social welfare functions, in which, and that's the interesting thing for us, this should be proposition 2, sorry, in which P and Q express inequality aversion within and between types, respectively. Okay, so here in this family now you can play with inequality aversion between type and within types, and so you can have different, different degrees in which the priority you give to inequality opportunity with respect to income inequality is expressed. So when P equal to 1, there is no within type inequality aversion. When Q equal to 1, then also P equal to 1, because Q less than P less than 1. And then you are in the case of utilitarian social function, okay? The standard case, which you are averse to any inequality without distinguishing, okay? So this is a bit, if you want, counterintuitive, because the smaller is the parameter, the higher is the inequality aversion you have, okay? So that's why, in fact,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Trying to keep up with you.
Yeah.
So here there is an
So-
if and only if, so it's characterized, but I'm still in the world where F takes that specific generalized mean form.
No.
No?
Sorry, no. We are back to the general family in which you have Schur concave capital F and Schur concave small f. But
No restriction.
no restriction, yeah.
Only
But
additivity.
yeah, only additivity. With additivity, yeah, thanks for pointing this. With additivity, you get to this one.
So why, if you go back, why did you introduce that F, that restriction on F
Because you have this dominance condition.
for the dominance function?
Yeah. Yeah.
So without additivity, you need that for this proposition.
Yeah, for this dominance condition. Yeah. Instead, the additivity gives us the possibility to have an explicit, form of the function, and then an explicit form of the inequality indices that we are going to use. In fact, the next step is to obtain, an Atkinson type inequality index, which is basically defined in the usual way, that with that explicit form will be in the inequality index that we will use in the empirical application. Okay. So this index is continuous, shows both within type equality, and satisfies, of course, inequality. And measure the fraction of total income that a planner is willing to sacrifice in order to implement a fair income distribution. Okay. Yeah. So basically, yeah, what we will use is an Atkinson type of index based on this explicit formula. Okay, with some specific values of the parameters Q and P. Okay, we show the empirical application of all these. We have we've taken a small set of countries, 10 minutes, yeah, a small set of countries, so that we can focus on comparisons and make clear what is if there is any advantage of this approach. So Italy, Germany, France, and Spain in 3 moments in time. Those are the years in which, as you all know, I'm sure, the USILC has a module on intergenerational mobility, parental background. And we select a very small set of circumstances for this illustration. And we are working on a more general application. But for the moment, that is enough to show what's the point of this approach. So we have mother education, father education, mother occupation, father occupations, the education in 2 levels and the occupation 3 levels. And the outcome of interest is the individual equivalized household income. Okay. We basically we use a standard approach, a non-parametric approach to construct the types, and we so
those are really clear.
yeah.
graphs.
So I'm going. Yeah, I was just thinking about
you.
it. So I'm going to tell you what this graph says. So for the moment here, you just have the standard income inequality and opportunity inequality measured in the standard way, okay, according to this set of circumstances for the 4 countries in 2005, 2011, and 2019, okay? So just total inequality and inequality of opportunity, okay, from the 4 countries in the 3 years. These are the Gini of total income and Gini inequality of opportunity. Now, just to to emphasize that, look for instance at 2005. If you look at the total inequality, you have, I have to be closer myself. You have that Spain is a country with higher inequality. Then you have Italy, then Germany, then France. Okay. Instead, if you look at the inequality of opportunity, you have Germany, then Italy, France, and Spain. Okay. So first of all, the ordering of countries is completely different if you look at inequality of opportunity and income inequality. So that is an issue. The other issue, of course, is the magnitude. That here with this, okay, admittedly is a very coarse selection of countries. Inequality of opportunity is about it's about 30%, less than 30%, 25 to 30% of total inequality. Okay, so it's a small portion of inequality that appears to be unfair according to the standard inequality of opportunity. Okay, and that is also true in other applications. So according to the standard equality of opportunity approach, you have that the unfair inequalities are about 25, 30, 40% of total inequality. And okay, things change a little bit in 2011-19, but anyway, you still have the magnitude issue of inequality of opportunity with respect to total inequality and the re-ranking. Okay. Now, what if you use our index? So the index we use is this one. So basically, is the Atkinson index based on that family. What about the P and Q? These are parameters you can choose any value, but we try to be very let's say careful with the number you use. So for instance, World Bank uses Atkinson index with these values of P, and Q, because of course in the standard inequality of income, we have only just one parameter, and the values which are most used are 0.5, 0, and -1. So what do we do in our analysis? So we fix Q equal to 0. Q is inequality aversion between types, okay? What everybody agrees, okay? In the inequality of opportunity analysis. And everybody agrees that inequality between types is unfair. What about inequality within types, which is the addition we propose, okay? We, of course, distinguish between the case of total inequality, which P is equal to 0, the standard inequality opportunity, which is P equal to 1, and our prioritary inequality opportunity, in which P is equal to 0.5. So we choose exactly the intermediate value of P between total inequality aversion and only inequality opportunity aversion, okay? So what we do now, we compute total inequality, inequality opportunity, and our prioritary inequality opportunity for the three countries, sorry, for the three periods, for the 4 countries. Okay, I hope you can see it a bit better now. We have some colors. So here you have total inequality. Here you have absolute inequality opportunity, relative inequality opportunity, and absolute prioritary inequality opportunity. Okay. So first of all, I would focus on, okay, you have the three periods, 2008, 2012, you should be 2005, in fact, 2012, 2018, okay? Sorry. No, sorry, it's right. It's not written here, but 2005 and 2019 here. So first of all, in terms of magnitude, this is the Atkinson index. Huh? So when you look at the inequality in general terms, so total inequality, you have a value of the index which goes from 0.18 to 0.12, okay, more or less. When you measure inequality of opportunity in absolute terms, you have values which goes 0.025 to 0.010, more or less, okay? When we measure instead unfair inequalities with our approach, you know, you have that the unfair inequalities goes from 0.08 here to 0.09, 0.08, 0.06, okay? And if you follow now the trend in inequality, you have a very different trend from the total inequality to inequality opportunity. So inequality in total income is first increasing from the first to the second period and then decreasing, okay? Inequality opportunity has more or less the same trend, while relative is looks different. And prioritary inequality opportunity, if you see, is really a little bit intermediate between the two, okay? So for instance, one can focus on the last period in which you have Spain is the most unequal country, followed by Italy, by Germany, and then by France. If you look at inequality opportunity, you have a completely different ordering. You have France is the most unequal, then you have Spain, and then you have Italy and Germany, more or less on the same level. If you go to our unfair inequality, you have Spain, and then these three countries close together. So in a sense, you know, is what to expect, that you have an intermediate position. Now, if you think about it in terms of ranks, rather than, ranks in terms of values, what you have for the 2005, you have that the highest country, I mean, with the highest inequality is France. Then you have Italy. Then you have Spain, and then you have Germany, okay? That's for the inequality of opportunity. These things change a little bit when you go to the prioritary inequality of opportunity, and change even more when you go to inequality. Okay, so what's the point of this comparison? Is to say that if you look at rank, okay, inequality of our prioritarian criterion is in a sense more concordant with the inequality of opportunity than with the total inequality. And this is coherent with giving priority to inequality of opportunity with respect to total inequality. So the data, in a sense, capture our intuition about how we build this index. You know, just by calculating the Spearman correlation between IOP and our prioritarian IOP, you see 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. Between our prioritarian IOP and total inequality is 0.8 in the first year, but then it's 0.4, 0.2. So our prioritarian approach is more correlated empirically to the equality of opportunity rather than to total inequality. And this is consistent, in a sense, with the theoretical expectation we have. Okay, this is I'm not have time, but that's basically a robustness check we did with other values of the parameters P and Q, but confirm the same thing. Let me conclude with the next steps. First, we can explicitly generalize to types of different size, okay? We can calculate and compute the types with conditional inference trees rather than with the non-parametric approach as we did. And at a more ambitious level, you know, this approach of prioritarian equality of opportunity can also be used in fair taxation models, the same way as the equality of opportunity approach has been used to define the optimal taxation. And another issue is that what we did here can be interpreted in a very different framework, so not opportunity egalitarian, but in a framework of heterogeneous population, when you are interested in between groups and within groups inequality, okay? This is a framework which gives you the ability to weight the between group and the within group components differently according to your, you know, analysis, the analysis you are doing. And it can be used also, you know, in a different context. And so the conclusion, we have proposed a new measure of unfair inequality that reconciles equality of opportunity with equal income, giving a priority to the former. This framework, we hope, might overcome some criticism raised against the existing inequality of opportunity measures, both empirical criticism and theoretical criticism. In the empirical application, we find sizable upward correction of unfair inequality when we complement the concept of equal opportunity with income inequality aversion. And the comparison between European countries is sensitive to the degree of income inequality aversion. And thank you for the attention. I will stop here.
Thanks very much, Vito. Let me take some questions from here, if there are any. Yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It's very technical, a lot of econometrics. But in terms of public policy, so how we, what need to do or improve the inequality, the opportunities, the reconcile both. What do you think about that in practical terms?
Well, in practical terms, this, in a sense, this paper is motivated by a worry about the political implications of our calculation. In the sense that one of the criticisms against the equality of opportunity approach was that by focusing only on a portion of inequalities, which is explained by circumstances, the implicit message, someone says, is that all the remaining inequalities, they don't need any corrective intervention. Okay. And what we try to say is that that's not true. Because what we are saying is that the inequality of opportunities have to be prioritized. So need to be in the priority of political intervention. But it doesn't mean that the rest of inequalities, they don't need compensating or a removing intervention of the public or the public authority. It's a matter of priority. It's not a matter of touching only some inequalities and not the others. So in this sense, it's very practical for the public debate because it responds to that criticism.
Okay, so let me understand. So we need to prioritize more opportunities than inequality in income.
To prioritize those inequalities which are generated by circumstances. So what we call inequality opportunities. But that doesn't mean that the rest of inequalities are fair. It means that they are, let's say, less unfair than the first one. But what this approach says to the planner is that you shouldn't be satisfied, even if you were able to remove all inequality opportunities. Okay, you shouldn't be satisfied. You should keep combating against inequalities. Okay. So it's a matter of priorities, not a matter, of a neutrality with respect to the rest of inequalities.
Okay. Stephen?
Thanks very much for the talk, really interesting. Throughout, I've been trying to think about how to relate this to old stuff that Peter Lambert and I did about comparing distributions with differences in needs. They think of differences in needs as defining groups.
Yeah.
So we ended up with sequential dominance conditions following Atkinson, Bouillon, no surprise. The issue there was that it was actually a form of welfare dominance. Yep. Now, what I'm trying to see is whether or not your results here actually have broader implications. You didn't rank the groups, which is, okay, that's something we didn't do because you assumed you could rank the groups in terms of neediness. But on the other hand, there's some other stuff that you've done about additivity and bringing in inequality aversion that allows you to come up with these nice, neat indices of the shape you'd expect, and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to see, also speculating about whether or not your approach, because all you've done, you haven't really used much about inequality of opportunity here. It's given you groups, basically. So whether or not, so what you've done could actually be applied more generally.
Yeah, as long as you give priority to inequality between groups with respect to inequality within groups.
Okay, now we'll just call.
That's the sharp answer to you. Yeah.
Just call it horizontal inequities.
If you want. So the horizontal inequity counts less. Well, it depends. If you call horizontal inequity the between groups inequality, because in that case it's the opposite. You call it horizontal inequity the inequality between families of different
but even if you
kinds.
brought it into, say, ethnic minority groups,
okay,
anything that's group-based.
Anyway, so the difference with respect to that sequential generalized Lorentz dominance and the condition that you and Peter and before Atkinson and Bouillon characterized is okay, technically that you use additive social function and you start with the preordering of types of groups. We don't need that one, but the crucial thing is the transfer axioms, because you use a transfer axiom between groups and a transfer within groups without giving priority to one or to the other. Our main difference is exactly that transfer axiom, which gives a different treatment to the two transfer axioms. And we do not impose any assumption on the second derivative too, because what you do, in addition to the transfer axioms, you impose a principle of diminishing transfer axioms, which gives you a condition on the second derivative of the function. We don't need that one here.
Oh, you don't, but you have a differential short concavity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the
same thing.
Yeah, but we are not explicit on that thing. Yeah.
The theorist stuff. Any other? Yes.
So you motivated your indices with sort of this observation that in the literature you have, on the one hand, the criticism that we can't probably measure all the dimensions that we want to assess inequality opportunity along. And we also, we may have preferences on inequality aversion sort of within groups. And your indices help us to kind of put a measure on this second aspect. So I'm wondering whether whether if we can't observe, for example, all of the dimensions that we would like to assess inequality of opportunity along, if we can't observe those, then there will be some sort of omitted variable that kind of affects how we divide people into groups, right? So I may assign people into groups, but this may capture some unobserved variable. And if I do so, then actually I have this, I think it was the Q parameter, right? That kind of also determines inequality aversion sort of on that first group of, criticism, right? So I would have that zero inequality aversion that I would like to apply only to between group inequalities. I would also have that kind of on the dimensions or on that omitted variable bias on the misclassified individuals, for example, that I misclassify because I can't observe all the dimensions of inequality for two. Does it make sense?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. I mean, what is the question? I understand your point. What is the question? In the sense that this approach is not motivated only by the not perfect observability of the circumstances. Okay, this is one of the criticisms, and we think that this approach might satisfy those people who raise that criticism. But there is let's say, a deeper normative issue here, which is, suppose we were able to observe all the circumstances. Okay, suppose we were. Does it mean that all the remaining inequalities due to effort are fair? Okay, so what we say here is that that's not granted, in the sense that you might have a situation which for tiny differences in effort, you have huge differences in outcomes. Now, is it fair? What let's say we say here is that for most of the, not all, but there is a variety here of view in the opportunity egalitarian world, okay? But for most of the people who have written and defended the equal opportunity view, they don't want to accept all the remaining inequalities, whatever they are. Okay, so for instance, Romer is quite explicit on this. He says what is relevant for us is that we should at least leveling the playing field, but we are not saying that for the rest of inequalities we are neutral. Okay, we are not saying that. We just wanted at least those inequalities are removed. Okay. So that's why we were looking for a way to say that also the remaining inequalities matter, okay, but without going too far to the outcome egalitarianism. So how do we do that? Our proposal is exactly we are prioritizing. Okay. Should be even more honest on that. If you ask us what is the optimal distribution, okay, according to this, the optimal distribution is the egalitarian distribution.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, but then is this irrelevant? We think it's not, because in most of the empirical case, we are on second-best solutions, okay? In second-best solutions, then we have to compare distributions which are, we have some degree of inequality, okay? So in most of second-best solutions, this criterion allows you, is different from the prescription of the outcome egalitarianism. In most of second best scenario that you empirically, let's say, afford. Okay. On the optimal, yes, the optimal thing is that everything is equal. But for most of the intermediate empirical situations, we are not there. And so you can give more weight to the first than to the second.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you think of this sort of Ingvild Alma's et al. Type of people who do norm-based distributions. The measure of inequality is a deviation from a norm, from the sort of fair distribution. I was going to ask you if the fair distribution in your case was equality, which I guess it is.
That's one of the reasons, in a sense, we took a different road. Yeah, because with that approach, which is the approach that Uffe and Campbell use, the non-distribution, you start from the fair distribution and then you take as a difference your inequality measure. And in our case, with this priority idea, it was difficult to define, to imagine a fair distribution, different from the full egalitarian one. Yeah.
So we are at maybe over coffee or something. We have to end. If I was going to take one, I was going to take Pedro, but I think we have to end because it's 1:30. So Vito is around. You can just come and ask him questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vito.